I like to think of spring as more of a spring tide, so I like to spread out the preparations and slowly welcome in spring as it slowly starts to unveil itself where I live. Depending on where you live, spring may already have a lot of blooms around you, as opposed to where I am, where there's still that struggle between winter and spring, and the ground is some days thawed and other days it's frosted over again. And because of this, I find it really natural to more have a slow progression into the season as opposed to just a lot of things to do all at once. So depending on where you live, you may want to alter some of these ideas or come up with your own that really speak to the spring season. So just a quick little story break. In Gaelic and Celtic folklore, there is the hag goddess, the Cailleach, who is associated with winter, and she brings in winter with her staff, and she sort of reigns over winter over the land during the months of winter. And in some traditions, the Cailleach and the spring goddess bride are the same figure, and there is a transformation that happens within the one being. But in other traditions, they are separate beings, and the Cailleach is trying to maintain her reign of winter over the land, as bride is trying to usher in new growth in that time of spring. Where I live, there really is often a bit of a struggle between the two seasons during the month of March, and sometimes even April. Even as I speak, there's a bit of a windstorm going on outside. And when these days appear, I like to think of it as that struggle of transformation, of the struggle of letting go of some things, as I myself sometimes have a hard time fully embracing spring right away. There's a part of me who wants to stay safe and cozy under my blankets, and who enjoys the quiet that winter often ushers in. So one thing you may want to take notice of is the days that you're feeling more like the Cailleach, who wants to hold on a bit to the season that's transitioning, and the other days where you do feel more like the goddess bride that's bringing in the new season. I just really find that I like to have these figures in my mind during this time when the weather can be so unstable. So a lot of times we associate the spring equinox and Ostara with spring cleaning, and while that can be in the very practical sense, we want to sweep out some of the dirt that's coming in, because with the change of the season there's often a lot of dirt and dust that's gathering, and we may have time to switch over our wardrobe slightly. I like to first start with really focusing more in on a cleansing of the energy that's in your space, especially maybe in your sacred space. You can do this with incense. You can do this even just with prayers or thoughts, dusting away, as I said. And I really like myself to use sound, so I'll take out my koshi chimes that I have, but you can even just use a simple bell or even sing over it, because that can cleanse the energy too. And just play some beautiful sounds to clear out some of the stagnant energy that may have gathered. I then also like to take the moon water that I made in February and just sprinkle some of it on the space, on my altar space, or just spaces around my office or in my home. Another thing you may want to do is prepare a spring music playlist for yourself that you can have ready for March 20th of this year, and then of course continue playing it as spring more unveils herself as we go on. But this is a really good thing to do before you hit the spring equinox or Ostara, whichever you choose to more celebrate. And I myself have just started to make one, and it just has a bit more of a lighter breezer feel to it. This is another playlist that maybe you want to use to help cleanse out your space with sound. I like to embrace slowly changing some of the decor in my apartment/office space. So I'll put up something that speaks more to spring and just some little changes around that bring in a bit more color and help me to embrace the season that is coming. And then on the date of March 20th, I more already have that feeling of spring around me as opposed to just pulling it out at that time. A big transition that happens between seasons is the food that's available to us, especially if you do try to eat a little more seasonally. So a thing you may want to do leading up to March 20th is plan out and think of some of the spring meals you'd like to make. See what foods will be seasonally available to you in your region. Again, this is a time where things are really different depending on where you live, but it can be fun to just plan out some things you'd like to make either for March 20th specifically, or even just planning ahead into that season of spring. Some of the meals you'd like to try, some of the foods you're looking forward to purchasing as they come available at farmers markets or in your own garden. So first up, you may want to make an Ostara / spring altar or sacred space where you live. And here you may want to place some fresh flowers or plants that are in bloom or in season where you live. You may want to put out some decorated eggs, some rabbits, all the little animals that are associated with new birth during this time of spring. And you can be really creative with this. Think about how spring shows itself where you live, and then adapt that sacred space, that altar space, to display the things that really speak to spring where you are. Also, I just want to share that you can be creative with where you put this space. It doesn't have to just be on a desk or a mantelpiece or anything. I've decided that for this spring, I'm really going to focus on this vintage little house that I found in an antique store actually just last year, and I'm turning it into my spring space. I'm turning it into a little spring home. So some of the things that I decided to put in it are these cute little vintage bunny toys that are welcoming in spring, and behind it is a little pink tree. Now, while you could think of it as a pink tree covered in snow, I sort of think of it as a representation of trees in bloom, like a crabapple tree or a cherry blossom tree. I have my little moomin back out because, for those who may not know, the character of the moomin actually hibernates during the winter, so the moomin will be returning and coming out in spring. I have some of my really bright tapes that I use for some of my journaling or letters I write, and it's nice to have them out because it just brings in some of those bright springy colors. I have a little fox planter, so he's bringing new life and bloom into the space, and I kind of think of him as a little baby fox who's emerged into the new year. And then I decided to put my little angel candle holder for now inside of my spring house, just helping to bless and welcome the season as it's coming in. So this is just a little example of ways that you can be creative with the altar or sacred space that you decide to make for Ostara / the spring equinox. Music is a wonderful way for welcoming in any sort of transition or new season. And for myself, I've already started, but I know that on March 20th, I'm going to play Vivaldi's Spring, because I do find that the music is a wonderful illustration, a musical illustration of the season. And I'm just gonna clear the space out with that beautiful music with those strings playing. But you can pick the music that really speaks to you, or if you have a singing bowl, you may want to go around your living space and just cleanse it by playing your singing bowl or any chimes that you may have. I also think it's a wonderful time for really focusing in on your doorway area and cleansing it so that you're allowing the energy to flow really beautifully throughout that space. And you may want to, if you can, where you live, open your windows that day, letting in new air, letting in new energy. And again, it can be a really wonderful time for cleaning off those windows so you're letting new light into where you live. And it's perfect to mix that with listening to music that speaks to spring to you as you are doing this revitalization of energy and spring cleaning in the place that you live. This is a wonderful time for focusing in on new beginnings and plant life. So one thing you may want to do is go around and check in on all the plants that you may have in your apartment. See how they're doing. Should you maybe think about changing their living space, their pot soon? Do you think maybe they would do best in another area of your living space, be that an apartment or your home? This is a really wonderful time for doing like a nice little deep check-in on how your plants are and providing them the things that they need. This is also a beautiful time for doing a seed blessing and starting some new seed. Each time that you are starting the seed, you want to just say a little prayer or have a little meditation for that seed, thanking it for what it's going to be providing you, and also wishing it well on its journey in the soil into a plant, and welcoming in the sun and warmth that's coming with this new seed or seeds that you are planting. The spring equinox / Ostara is very much about the return of light. After March 20th, our days are going to be getting longer, so there'll be more sunlight. This is why we're able to plant all those seeds, because they're going to be nourished by that light that's coming for them. So one idea is to do a meditation or prayer to the sun and the longer days that are coming. And it's really beautiful if you're able to wake up in time to greet the sun as it's rising, or just even at the end of its rising on that first day of spring, to welcome it in and thank it for the returning light that's coming to the land around you.